Thank you for joining us today for this session about how to write a strong conference proposal. And I am Oli Dinov. I am director of devreal at Bytewax. I am also a proud co-organizer of AI by the Bay conference, which will take place in Auckland in November. And I'm happy to be here with Baruch. Baruch, please introduce yourself.
Hello, yes. So I'm Baruch Sadogursky, developer, advocate at large, both serial submitter of abstracts and talks to different conferences, and serial speaker as a result of, although with not 100% acceptance rate, and organizer of some number of events, so being on both submitting side and reviewing side of the CFP process.
Okay, then Alexy Khrabrov.
Hi guys, I'm Alexy. So I'm the founder, now co-organizer of Scale by the Bay, Data by the Bay, all the by the Bay series of events. This year it's AI by the Bay again, following the pioneering 2017 version of it. And I'm also the co-founder of the AI Alliance, which is IBM, Meta, and 100 other companies. Also the founder and chair of Open Source Science at NonFocus, and member representative Neo4j at Linux Foundation for AI and Data, also running Bay Area Meetup, the oldest, longest running, deepest technical meetup on AI in the world. And I also submitted multiple talks. I am the program chair for the AI by the Bay, so I reviewed 10 years worth of proposals, and super excited to start the CFP process, which will lead to the best conference in the world on AI in November.
And I'm happy to be here with Lisa as well.
Hi, everybody. My name's Lisa. I'm the product manager at a company called Datastrato. We created an open source catalog called Apache Gravitino. I also run a meetup here in the Bay Area, relatively new, but I think it's really popular now, called the Data for AI Meetup. And that's where I know a lot of these really great folks as well. I also work at the Linux Foundation. I'm on the LFAI and Data Outreach Committee, as well as I run the Open Platform for Enterprise AI's working group, so for developer experience, and lead the Continuous Data Delivery Foundation's data ops initiative. So a lot of really cool things. I also do a lot of speaking. I've served on other program committees, including the Open Source Summit North America in their data and AI, as well as the Continuous Delivery track. So happy to be here.
So thank you everyone for joining me today with this variety of experiences and real deep expertise. I think we're gonna give people quite a lot of information on how to be successful in submitting talks because COVID is over now. Everyone is active. I'm really happy to hear about this data in AI meetup that Lizzie you started, and that basically one of the most popular ones in the topic in the Bay Area. That's really great. So I want to start our conversation with trying to shape what makes a strong conference proposal. So go ahead, share your opinion.
Or pick the speaker.
Okay, Barth, start.
All right. Yeah. So, strong, good conference talk idea makes strong proposal. Uh, this is what it should really start with, that you really have an idea for a good talk. Expressing it in a good proposal is very important, and we'll get to it in a second, what to do, what not to do. But first and foremost, you actually need to have a good idea what you want to talk about. Good idea both in knowing what you're talking about and also something that is relevant, interesting, and attractive to the audience. And I would say getting those ideas for technical people should be rather straightforward. Just tell us about what are you excited about, and probably audience will be excited about that as well. So if we're talking about software engineers, it might be something that they work on, it may be something that they learn about and want to learn more about. It can be something that inspired them to dig into a specific content. In the end of the day, ideas that will eventually be the core of the talk is what drives a good proposal as well.
So I agree with your point, but I was thinking about how I explain someone what makes a strong proposal, and I thought that I would give them probably more formal explanation, step by step. Like when I look at something, what the regular pattern, what it's typically included in the proposal. So, and I came up with a list of things like in my proposal, I need to explain what am I talking about in general, give a context, like we're in the era of LLM, whatever, and this was too generic, but basically I'm trying to define the topic, and then I move into the talking about the problem, like your why others should bother, because I found something that is relevant to them because they have the same problem, or it might not be the problem, but they might not even know that they have this problem, but I need to explain them, hey, we do that.
Absolutely. We will get into all that in a second. The structure, bury delete, don't bury delete, be open about it, try to make it intriguing. There are tons of
So of
ways to
course,
do
I'm
it
just
right.
speeding up. I'm just speeding up.
But first, ideas. This is what we start with. But hey, let's let someone
Yeah,
else.
so a little formal, as I said, and then I present a solution, and I talk about the concrete takeaway. So if I can unpack my idea with this thing, I think that's a really great start. Lisa, do you want to?
Yeah, I can chime in here. I think that Oli and Baruch, like you guys came up with some really awesome ideas. And I think that the structure is super important, right? Having a very tight opening, like in the first sentence of reading it, I should know exactly what this talk is about and what maybe the value is to me as somebody in the audience. I think one of the things that a lot of people get wrong in that particular first step is really scoping their talk correctly. Is this a wide talk or is this a narrow talk? And how deep into the tech or the topics this talk is going to go into? And oftentimes, and unfortunately, this is something that we see a lot with, say, AI generated abstracts, is that there's a very, wide and abstract scope. And I, as a reader or as somebody on the committee, I don't necessarily understand, but what exactly are you going to cover? What exactly are you going to say? It should really read, in my opinion, like a thesis statement, X because of Y results in Z, and I should be able to fit the pieces there as a reader and as an audience member to what those benefits are. And then you can list to me maybe some of the benefits or some of the things that you're covering. Don't be scared to go into something that is unique, especially, if it's something that's a piece of technology that you know really well, but also, really make sure that you're communicating what those benefits are if I'm somebody who's coming in from a vertical or some other field.
Alexy, do you want to add something?
Absolutely. So, everything Lisa and Baruch said is on the money. I think the technical motivation is coming through. There is this famous saying, I think, by one of the US courts, like, we cannot define pornography, but we know it when we see it. Same thing applies to intelligence. It's very hard to actually define what a good talk is or what a good speaker is, but when you see them. And in my mind, in an engineering context, at a meetup, right, you have a lot of very skeptical people. You have a lot of angry middle-aged guys who will, cut the crap and ask, like, what is actually going on here, right? Without any reservation. And so that if people pay attention, ask questions, that they're engaged. And so what usually I've noticed, right, and I think we've been very good at it, I think, for the 10 years, and Lisa has been amazing at it, like your speakers are these kind of people, right? So they bring, I think, a lot of experience, lived experience. They're not marketers who heard something, combine a bunch of buzzwords together. They suffered, they show the scars, they are still excited about it. Like this, and they share something that they've done. And so it doesn't have to be fully open source, right? Like, we have all kinds of people talking about proprietary stuff, but in my experience, if you and it's totally fine as well to market your company, to market your product, but you have to do it in a balance. And so what I think you have to, in order to earn the right to sell, some stuff, you have to teach people, you have to give, right? Like you take people's time and attention to do something, you have to give them back. That is learning. And you share some of the experiences that you lived through. You took some open source projects, you put them together. You got stuff to run. You built a system. You took it to customers, right? And I mean, even a life story, right? Like I think a lot of different talks have very interesting kind of things. And so at the very minimum, you have to tell a story. The story is what holds it together. And the good story comes from lived experience or some really kind of deep thoughts that you processed yourself, right? And it's kind of, and I think this is how it's different from AI, because we need some human story. We need the speaker to come through as a human being who lived through something interesting and got a story to tell, and you will know that, as opposed to somebody who's just like droning on against some points. And so by the Bay events, we had a very similar ask usually, which affects the CPU. Show some code, right? Like, and the code is a very huge differentiator, because if you cannot show any code and you can just wave your hands, that's easy. But the moment you have to put, and the code is an artifact, you can bring a robot you built, show something you've done. The moment you do that, right, you open yourself up to scrutiny, and people can raise hands and like, what is this? It doesn't work, like, right? There is a typo in there. So you immediately put people on the spot. So by willing to do this, you basically cut off a whole bunch of people who don't want to do this, right? Like it should be falsifiable. The experience should be prone to questions, and you'll see what's real, what's not.
That's a nice one. I thought about like when you see a good speaker, that this is the one. So when you see a good proposal, this is the one. Maybe folks, you could give me an example. Like, who's your favorite see like speaker who writes awesome CFPs in examples?
It's kind of hard to pinpoint like a speaker that their CFPs are way above others. Let's talk about different styles of CFPs and different good styles of CFPs, right? So, and this is something that I kind of wanted to throw out there and see what others think. There are, I would say, two main styles of CFP submissions. The one is basically show me the money, right? When you put what you want to talk about in the title very clearly, and then in the abstract itself, you lay out both the problem that you are going to speak about, how you're going to solve it, what this talk is going to show. Very practical, very out there, very down to earth. And this has huge benefits, both for the CFP committee that know exactly what they're going to get as long as the talk goes, but also for the audience. They will read this and they will realize what this talk is about. Another style is more of like putting out an intrigue. So you might put a question in the title and you might allure to the problem in the body of the abstract, but not necessarily give away and the solution. Maybe kind of imply what you gonna talk about. Now, this obviously feels more elaborate, more interesting, but not necessarily that's the right way to go, because then the CFP committee will have much harder time understanding if your talk gonna have merit. And also when the audience reads it, they might take it in two different directions. They might say, "Oh, I'm intrigued. I want to go and come. I want to go to this talk and see what they are talking about." Or they might say, "Well, that's too vague. I would prefer another talk which has a very clear abstract." So I would say the intriguing abstract is a risk that you might want to take if you have the credibility, if people know you and trust you, both in the community both on the committee and in the community, and they will go, I see a talk from Oli, I'm gonna go no matter what, because it's going to be amazing. And then you can try and experiment with that. But if you're just getting started, if you want to increase the chances that your talk is going to be accepted, be very specific, both in the title and in the abstract. Tell people what you're going to talk about. And it feels like, hey, but I'm giving the lead away. I gave all the secrets in the abstract. Don't worry about it. If it's interesting enough, people will come to hear more. If all your idea completely fits into an abstract text field, probably you don't have enough to deliver a talk anyway.
Well, I, as a conference organizer, and I hope Alexa can back me up, I actually hate when there is intrigue, because like that makes me, I have to go and check who that person is, if for some reason I don't know who the submitter is. So I have to check, and I'm like, do they really know what they're talking about, or is it just like a elevator pitch of something, marketing, whatever. So not. On the other hand, if all talks are straightforward, well, it depends on the conference. For AI by the base, since we're positioning it as really for practitioners, then probably it would be easy for us if it was all very direct approach. On the other hand, we're also looking for innovators, for new ideas, for something to, God forbid, revolutionize.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that you cannot have new ideas, fresh ideas, maybe not finished, maybe not the ones that you can just put out there and it's very understandable for everybody. What I'm saying is, don't try to put too much intrigue and too much
Right.
smoke
Yes.
and mirrors in your abstract,
Yes.
because you're afraid that people won't come if you be too upfront about what you're going to talk about. It's not a real it's not a real problem. It's not something that you really need to care about. Be very open and very deliberate about what you're going to talk about.
Here's the question. So, name your Baruch. I'll start with you. Name your own, since you gave gazillion talks, your own title, like your favorite one, the title of the talk that you gave.
I'm a sucker for wordplay.
Yeah.
I know it's kind of cheap, but I enjoy it. So when I see like a clever wordplay in the title, I chuckle and kind of I remember them better than other ones. So for me, this is where you can get clever and do some fun stuff with the title. Again, up to a limit, of course. It still needs to convey what you want to say, but a little bit of wit I would appreciate in the title.
So, are you gonna tell us the title though?
I don't have one
Example.
like to out of my sleeve right now, but you know what? Let me see if I can find something that
Okay, then
I really like.
Lisa,
Yeah.
maybe you have your favorite title, or something that you, not necessarily yours, something that you remember and it stick into your head. And
I think the one that is one of the more popular ones that has wordplay, I think, is like maintaining diverse maintainers. And this is more of like a diversity talk. And it's like, how do you get, folks in the open source community to engage from all of these different perspectives? And I think that's probably the closest I have to wordplay. I'm a bit of a boring person. I'm very straightforward with what my talk titles are.
yeah.
I think probably the most popular talk that I have is just like open source data ops and ML ops strategies. And a part of that is because it's such a wide scope. And so people want to know, like, what are the strategies if I'm looking to go into open source, and I'm very good with really doing the landscape talk. It's a very hard talk to give sometimes, but I think that's part of the intrigue of it, is that there's a little bit of something for everybody in there. And so generally speaking, I think the strategy talks tend to do quite well these days compared to specific tooling talks, because there's so many different types of tools out there. And so people want to know, how are you approaching this problem and why, and what are you doing to solve it? Versus, this particular tool is going to solve all of your problems. I don't know what your problems are. I just know that my tool is going to solve them. And those type of talks can be very unsatisfying, because I think as engineers, as Alexy has pointed out, like, we're very skeptical of sales talks. We want to understand the design of something, and we know that the waves of tools comes and goes, right? We want to understand the expertise that you've gained over the years.
Alexy, do you have your favorite type of
Well,
talk or something?
first of all, I want to give a couple, points about the mystery. I mean, the best talk is actually, which looks very simple up front, and then turns out to be a mystery. So I give an example. So there are two speakers, which I, appreciate over the years. So George Hotz, the guy who jailbroke the iPhone, and then started to do self-driving car company, Calm AI. So he was a speaker at the original AI by the Bay and self-driving cars. And we have, Otto, the Uber self-driving company, and George. And so George actually had a very simple talk in the definition, right? Like talking about Calm AI. However, he just held the audience in trance. Like, he was this wunderkind, right? Like this wizard guy, and it was 8 years ago. He literally looked like a high school student with a hacker with a woolen cap, and he just had this style where everything he kind of described was new and mysterious. And so by the time he was half through the talk, you could follow him anywhere. Like, people didn't really know what's going on. Like, it was a mystery. He was unfolding the mystery of software. Here's the guy who cracked the iPhone. Here's the guy who had $500, self-driving car computer, which you can hook up to your Honda and suddenly have self-driving car. So at some point, I think he was kind of unfolding the mysteries of software. And then at some point, he basically asked the audience, now, do you guys want me to reveal the secret of everything? And at this point, there's total silence, and people just waiting for him to reveal the secret of everything. And the most amazing thing, 8 years later, I have no freaking idea what the secret was. Because probably it was not really a secret, but the way he built it up, right, really made it super engaging. So that's kind of one thing. So I think a lot of really depends on the style, and you kind of have if you have an idea, right, what people. So good speakers usually will be entertaining. The other speaker I really like is Paco Nathan, who is a mainstay of data science and Python community and graph community, and he's been, in the community for decades. So recently learned, from Datastrato, he was a bookshop owner alongside Lynn Bender at some point, the people who started the Texas, right? So he's a guy who can tell a good story. So he's now in graph community. So he tells a story about busting crime with graphs, right? So I think that's a very good use case. So if you have a really motivating use case, use it, because the question is how to solve crime with graphs, right? How can you not be interested in this? And then he kind of goes into a lot of context and the Panama Papers and so forth, and he shows kind of their interest in graphs, and he gets kind of to technical points specific there. But I think a very good use case, motivating a talk, is very important. So what I personally like to do, Neo4j has a lot of amazing people using graphs. So some customer motivating the problem, let's say General Motors put the whole car in the graph, right? Car is representing, in a digital twin. So if you have people who really care, who are customers, and then you have engineers who explain how the technology actually solves the problem, right? I think this is a very powerful combination.
Well, you segued a little bit from the topic. But
let's talk about the elephant in the room, right? Speaking about AI and stuff.
We call it the weave.
So let's talk about how AI and chatbots and change the writing proposals.
So there are two aspects in using and abusing LLMs with CFP. The first is very simple, just the sheer amount of proposals that you can crank now without moving a finger. And this creates asymmetry between people who submit proposals and people who read them, because creating proposals with LLM is very, very easy now, but to review them, you actually need to spend time and read them and understand them.
Maybe I can ask the chatbot to review them and understand them for me.
Yeah, no, I don't think we can trust them with reviewing
No,
the
of course
proposal.
not.
For now, right? So this asymmetry is very, very hard on the reviewers and on the conference organizers. And if previously we wouldn't mind kind of welcoming all your ideas, and it was pretty rare to see CFPs that limit the amount of proposals, today it's a norm. And I think it's completely justified, because otherwise we're just drowning in AI generated bullshit. And I think the AI by the Bay is, I would say, a little bit extreme example, limiting the number of
I
proposals.
changed it to 3 after you told me.
Right, but I think anything between 3 and 5 is completely reasonable. And that kind of, once we limit that and kind of bring it out to control, that brings the other question: should we write the proposals using AI? So there are two ways to go about it. The first is this: your normal, hey, this feels like cheating, it's not you who write the proposal, and that's kind of a one way. And then we need to battle it, we need to root it, we need to find the proposals using tools that like zero GPT, and then ban them from ever being accepted. Very purist and very kind of old way, crafted way of doing things. The other one is, and this is what I believe, in the end of the day, a proposal, an abstract, is a way to express what your presentation is going to do about. And frankly, I don't care how you express it. Record a TikTok dance that will express your proposal. I really don't mind. And if you think that ChatGPT can write a better abstract than you will, maybe because you are not that great in English, maybe because you're just don't know how to express an abstract, you know what? Go for it. Use the tools that you have to get the best proposal possible. Now,
when you said that, I have to reserve one spot for someone who's applying with TikTok dance. Like I have to do that.
right?
Just make a TikTok URL, in the
like a field. Yeah, exactly, right? But on the other side, obviously, we know that all those models have a certain style. And this style is not necessarily what we are, not necessarily helps us to understand the style of the speaker. It's like all this LLM language that makes all the abstract look alike. This is obviously not putting you as a submitter in an advantage. You are like everybody else, like any other LLM generated submission, and you might get rejected not because whoever reviewing passionately hates LLM submissions, but just because, you know what, this is just boring. This is like any other LLM submission. They all look alike. I don't understand what they want to tell me, and this is why I reject you. Not necessarily because it's written by LLM. Maybe it's written by you, but this is just boring and like everybody else. So what I want to say, if you can force LLM to express your ideas in the way that are clear, engaging, expressing what you're going to talk about, not boring, different than others, go for it. And you know what? If you want to check if that's not different than others, use Zero GPT to actually make sure that you doesn't sound like LLM, even if you wrote it yourself. And then, you know what? Have at it. In the end of the day, if we have good, coherent abstract of what you're going to talk about, and it's appealing and it's fun to read. I don't mind that it's written with LLM.
Perfect. Love it. Lisa, do you have, what's your take on it?
So there was a lot of information thrown out
Yeah.
just now, and I thought that there was some really great insights in there. I also want to say, though, that if you're a speaker and you want to give a presentation for 20, 30 minutes or even a lightning talk, etc., we're going to trust you to have a certain basic level of communication and personality to be able to convey that information as well. And when I see a ChatGPT generated abstract, I worry about that person's general communication skills of if they can they deliver an engaging talk, but also whether or not the rest of their presentation is also going to be generated, right? That's something that I'm really concerned about, because the abstract, typically speaking, if you have all the ideas floating in your head, it's really easy to come up with an abstract, even in just point form format, and then you can feed it into, a chatbot, and it can convert it into sentence format, clean up some of the grammar. That's not hard. But if you don't know what your talk is going to be about, if you don't have the ideas already in place, then that's when a lot of folks are going to lean towards, LLMs to generate it from scratch. They're going to be pulling the sources, they're going to be pulling the facts, and that's probably going to lead towards the rest of, your talk as well, unfortunately. And when I think of a great speaker, I think of somebody who knows the information so well, like the back of their hand, that they can just communicate and go on, right? When we think about some of the best talks, and I'm kind of guilty of this as well, because I have really wordy sides, but the best speakers, they just have like a random picture that they pulled from Google Images, and the rest of them is just talking, right? It's just them talking, it's them telling the story. They're not leaning too much on the external sources, because it all kind of lives within them already. All of that information is there. They know what they want to say. They're very confident in that. And so I do feel like an abstract is a proxy towards so much of that. So really, if you're needing to generate something from scratch, really think to yourself, am I, really passionate enough about this topic to be able to communicate it, to be able to say it? Because this is your elevator pitch, right? This is...
And we are back to where Baruch starts with an idea that is precedes the actual writing.
Full circle.
Yeah, full circle. Alexy, in our pre-show, you said something interesting about using AI for writing submissions.
Yeah, I'll be blunt about it, right? So if you have nothing to say and you basically ask ChatGPT to amplify it, you will have 10 times more nothing to say in elaborate form, right? Which will be both boring and tedious, and right. And so again, I think we're the last generation which grew up without these tools, and so like my kids are using it just natively, right? So like my son didn't know any Java. He built a Minecraft server in Java using ChatGPT without, and like he didn't bother. Wait, like I said, like son, I'll give you a 2-hour lecture about Java and JV, and he's like, no, Dad, I don't have the time. Now he has a server, right? So I don't know what it means, but so the question is, you're going to be using these tools, and I can have a personal kind of example. So I'm submitting to a whole bunch of conferences, and I have like Russian high opinion of my own writing skills, because I am a very good writer in Russian. I won the first global competition for Russian online poetry 20 years ago, and like it kind of translates, like I think have style and stuff like this. And so now I got a very good manager, my VP of devreal, Steven Shin, who told me just run this stuff from Grammarly, and then I thought like this is like, why should I do this? My English is great. So then load my stuff into Grammarly, and oh my God, it finds all the stuff, right? Like I'm missing the articles. I'm basically feel like I just got on the boat yesterday. Like all this stuff needs to be fixed. And what he told me is very interesting. He said that, obviously half of the people here are immigrants, right? San Francisco is not a city; it's a cruise ship. People get on and get off, right? So all the foreigners like ourselves, who write reasonably good technical English, will see through it. But there is a whole bunch of people, for instance, I know in some cultures to whom it's very important that your English is correct, even if English is not their first language, because they run everything through Grammarly, they pay attention to this. So I think it's common courtesy to use some tools, right? Maybe not use, ChatGPT, so you can use it judiciously, right? And I think you have to review it. In my mind, like I'm looking for style. I care about style, and when you see some style, you know that people are gonna be special in some way, right? So that's my main problem. I think your style may be lost, but the tools can improve the quality of your submission, and Grammarly should not be beneath you or something like this, right? I think it really helps, and you may not know this, but somebody may be judging you, right, on some stuff like that. So that's kind of, it's good to cover your basis, but at least at AI by the Bay, I can assure you, we're looking for individuality. We're not going to run it through Grammarly, but somebody else will be somewhere else, right?
Yeah, as a last note on that, I think in the data community, we're a little bit dry when it comes to our submissions. I think one of the conferences that does the best abstracts is probably DEF CON, to be honest, if you're a security person. Every single DEF CON talk that makes it in there, because that's a very competitive conference, is always a compelling story. It's always kind of fun. There's a good energy to it, and I love to see that for our conference.
Actually, I want to wrap up this conversation today with talking about what we would expect for AI by the Bay. So I wrote like a long description of each of the tracks. There are 4 tracks for the conference: distributed system, data, thoughtful programming, and open source AI. All of them are all of them are we're going to focus on AI in this context. And right now, Bart needs to go, so we'll say bye-bye to him and I'll continue.
Thank you very much for having me. That was a pleasure. And people go submit to conferences, AI by the Bay, obviously, but also others. Don't be shy. Be explicit in your abstracts. Tell us what you're going to talk about, and you will be just fine. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Bart. Let me change. How do I? Yeah. So there are 4 tracks, and each of them, we think about them in the context of AI. Like, for example, distributed systems, since the AI is pushing the limits of how you build distributed systems, since like you need like some of the when you do like when you train your models, they can't be like now they're so big you can't do that in one machine. You need to put them in a cluster, and then but now it's even bigger. You can't put this in one cluster in one region. You have to do even this level of distributing. So we want to hear about things like that, and a list of others. Then data. So data infrastructure is very important for AI. How do you move that data? How do you make it in real time? Because everyone is wants their information fresh, not stale. They want to see. They want to understand the insights. Like they want people to be hooked on their website because it's so personalized, and that only possible if you move data really fast and if it's accessible across your cluster. Then the thoughtful programming. So by the way, conferences are known for for looking at the software holistically. Like you understand everything. So I already talked about the infrastructure and data, but then how do you write code? Like what tools do you use? What makes you more productive and effective? That's what we want to hear in this track. And then open source AI, well, that's self-explanatory, kind of everything, how it evolves. You have a project and it's open source, it's helping AI somehow, we want to hear about it. Then some projects that you're passionate about and that change the way you do AI pipelines and whatnot in your company. Fantastic, share that with us, or just ideas what would be great to have. So that's really not quick, but I tried to put that in few sentences. And Lisa, like as the meetup organizer, you see where people what they're talking about right now. What would be, in your opinion, uh, great ideas for the topic for those four tracks?
I think one thing that we're seeing, especially in the data infrastructure community, is how are we serving different types of data for AI and generative AI frameworks specifically, right? How are we able to manage our unstructured data or our data lakes or streaming data? And there's a lot of convergence these days around consolidating infrastructure, but also serving infrastructure in a way that's not just for traditional like analytical workloads as we know it. So I think some of that is really interesting for folks these days is how do I optimize, Kafka for like real-time analytics, or how do I, leverage Graph, or how do I leverage my data governance infrastructure? And so all of that I think is really fun.
Alexy, please talk about our tracks. You're the founder of the conference. I want your soul here.
Absolutely. So thoughtful software engineering is one of the foundational talks, right? And as you mentioned, it's kind of stepping back, thinking holistically. I think at this age, we are in a super important era of AI native programming, right? And everybody from now on will never program alone. They will be always surrounded by copilots. And we're very fortunate in the Bay Area to be in the middle of this. I think most of the folks building these tools are here. So I follow DevTools for AI very closely. And so that thoughtful software engineering track now will effectively be kind of thoughtful programming with or without AI, right? And so the art and craft of software engineering. And I think this is crucial now because how we as humans control and ensure safety of the software that AI is writing, and that's actually doing what we want, will be top of mind, right? Data. I'm super excited that Lisa is here because I'm a fan of Gravitina. Data provenance, data security, data governance, top of mind, and not in abstract shape, right? So I think Gravitina is putting your money where your mouth is. Like organize your data, right? Reason with it. So, and I think it's very cool that it kind of now became not just a data for AI, right? So it's data and AI together. So that is super kind of timely. Distributed systems, again, we are known for pioneering top distributed systems. I asked Matei Zafiri to start the Apache Spark meetup with me together. So he keynoted at multiple conferences. I brought Jake Raps to speak about Kafka when he was still at LinkedIn. And obviously, Apache Kafka is huge, right? I think I was one of the first folks to invite Apache Flink people, right? And so, huge fan of, Druid, like the big data systems at scale. They didn't go anywhere, where they power new internet. We just don't talk about it as much as before, but without them, none of this AI stuff at scale would not work. And our approach to AI has always been AI engineering, which is now they're calling when you think AI engineer. We've been talking about it for a decade, effectively, because whatever you do in your notebook is not going to run your bank, right? And how do you integrate whatever data science you have with production system, usually written in Java, and not Java is not going anywhere, right? How do you going to integrate these flows? It's key, right? And so I think bringing the stuff to production in an established context is very important, and it's missing in a whole bunch of AI conferences, right? Because they kind of end with, here's the model, here's the chatbot. Sure, like, where does your chatbot live? How is it hosted? How is API secured? How is it scalable, right? How do you do DevOps on it, right? All of this stuff we are very well known for. So we have this whole context. And I don't think you will get it anywhere, right? You will either usually get a software engineering conference or you will get the science conference. And I think we are the only ones who really do the whole span of things. And the idea is that you go home and for your startup, you know exactly what to do, how to deploy it, how to scale it. Now with AI, probably can just one person can do it all, right? Like we are very practical in that sense. We want you to take home all this stuff and use it, right? And play with it.
Right. So with that, I feel like we should stop here. And this is a lot of information for people to digest. And I think we're going to do more live stream and talk about different topics that bothers us and bothers our community. And just for people who want to submit, please do. I am posting a link here. It's sessionize.com/by-the-bay. And don't forget to get tickets as well on our website, aibythebay.io /register. We are selling early bird tickets, so please, this is the cheapest way to attend if you want to attend. Otherwise, submit and be a speaker, not just attend and be a speaker. Yes, so thank you so much, Lisa, for coming. That was incredible to hear your insights, and I hope to see you in November or earlier if I fly down to SF.
Yeah.
All right.
Go
Well,
submit
thank
your
you for
talk.
having me. Yeah.
And I'll see you by the bay in November.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Right. Thank you.
Cheers.